you'll see a bit of a map, and north is that way, so your maps go pointing that way. So looking at these rows, we can see a bunch of different plots of potatoes that prior to having potatoes planted in them, the entire field was this standing barley residue. And this barley residue looks the way it does because a type of a combine with a stripper header came through to take the grain all away. Judy Jolly had mentioned that they were going to be using a more traditional header type, which would be going through the field with a swather to lay it down in windrows, lay the barley down in windrows when it's mature, so that it could dry evenly, and then come in with a combine with a pickup header. This is a different sort where they allowed the barley to mature standing, and then came in with what's called a stripper header to remove just the heads, leaving the bulk of the straw standing in the field. And the reason for doing that, I'm going to hand it over to the Nissen so let's tell you why.
Oh, thanks, Patrick. The reason we did it basically is it saved us windrowing, and to some degree we lose some grain when we windrow just because of the header working in the grain, and it leaves us a chance to leave the stubble that way. And I was really intending to plant more of the cover crop right into it, but then I chickened out, and we chopped the straw this spring and worked it once and then planted into it. But we did leave this and a little bit on the far east side that we did plant into. Patrick was able to talk me out of working it all, and I was surprised at how well we were able to plant the cover crop into that standing, just with no tillage whatsoever. And it worked a lot better than I thought. So, and then Patrick's kind of been watching this a little bit. It's kind of raggedy looking, and like he said, an afterthought. But there are some differences in the amount of moisture that we held in that stubble, and even today, I guess. So Patrick knows more about that than I do. Want to say something, Mary?
Nope.
Okay.
So to set this up, Lyle came out with the different tillage implements that he had on the farm over the many years that the Nissens have been farming. They've had a chance of trialing and retiring, and then rebuilding and then bringing out again different implements over time. So different tillage implements, different cultivation implements. So you'll see going across from east to west and west to east that there are paths on your map that tell you, was it a tillage pass that was a chisel plow, a dyna drive, a Glencoe, or was it undisturbed, effectively not tilled prior to the potato planter coming through and going across those tillage paths. And we did that, Lyle did that, to figure out how much residue could his potato planter handle effectively, and what effect would the tillage have on getting the potato planter through. So in doing so, we figured out that we had one thing in mind. One thing in mind was to see how much residue we could have on the soil surface. So when we were up at Brendan Rockies, when we were up at the Coors farm, you probably noticed that there was some gravel on the soil surface. The soils are rockier on that side of the valley. Out here, it's much more sand, and we'll see just how much more when we get over to the soil pit in a few moments. But we've got really sandy soils out this way. The sands tend to blow like crazy if they're left uncovered, and they tend to evaporate water out of them real quick, also if left uncovered. So I figured using some drylanders technology of using standing stubble, using barley straw to catch more snow, to cover the ground and shade it, we could affect that soil health principle of keep the ground covered and see what it would do. Also, in the spring we typically have real intense winds and sandstorms to try to avoid, if we could, try to avoid any losses or any damage to the potato plants that would come up through that stubble due to shearing from sand blowing into them.